It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, February 24th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that could not think of two opposite teams to be playing this weekend in the Habs and Devils, but here we are.
Yeah, it's going to be a complete change-up. I agree.
It is. Okay, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about a Joel Farabee rumor that has now been started. And we're going to get into the Eastern Conference playoff race all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where we post about our latest episodes, Flyers news, all that good stuff. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. Locked On Flyers is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all those good places. Subscribe so you can get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Russ, as of recording, we don't have an update on Travis Konecny, but as we've been saying, probably not going to play.
He's not playing. Like, I feel really confident about that. I know we're not getting updates. We should be getting updates, but we don't. But he's not playing.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that he would be. Stranger things have happened, but
From a risk standpoint, it makes no sense. So
yeah, absolutely. And, I think that if there was any chance he would be playing, we would have actually heard by now that everything
yes,
was okay.
yes.
But they're probably just deciding what to do at the moment.
I think it's more of a long-term strategy that they're devising.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, on yesterday's show, we had a bit of a discussion on Flyers players who weren't exactly fitting in with the Torts system and what does that mean for them on the team and their future with the Flyers. And one of the names we talked about was Joel Farabee. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been very apparent, that maybe the injury recovery hasn't been as fast as Jack Eichel's was, who had similar surgery, and the timing of Jack Eichel's relative to him being able to train more completely over the summer probably affected his ability to come into this season a little better or in a little better position, I would say. But lo and behold, our old pal from Philly sports back in the day, Frank Saravalli, wrote an updated column with his trade deadline targets, and he has added Joel Farabee to that list. And it's partially because of that potential conflict there with what's going on with him this season and, him being given a fair shake in the system.
Well, it's a few things. So you talked about the neck, so we move on from that. I mean, I do believe the coach likes him because he likes his feistiness and I know he sees the talent in him because he has talked about that. And I don't think you could take that lightly. If we wonder about his neck, teams are going to wonder about his neck. Why in the world would a team take him at that salary with 4 years left when you're wondering about is he going to return to the old Joel Farabee? And why would the Flyers even try and trade him because his value is down? Like, I don't see any of this happening. I just maybe it's getting thrown around, but I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure it holds water either. And Sarah Valley, to be fair, also says that to a large degree in his column. But just the fact that he's on the list at all just kind of adds some extra drama or adds
Well,
more sharks
but
in the water right
I'm going to
now.
go back to my default setting here, and that is teams are making trades. There are teams that made trades already, big ones. There was another smaller trade today made between it was the Blackhawks and I forget the other team, but the Blackhawks made another trade today. They made another signing today. So there are teams that are doing things. The Flyers haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, that part of it and the fact that there hasn't even been rumors to say that the Flyers are close on anything is saying a lot right now. So maybe this is just a way to add more Flyers news to the daily churn. But
Oh, it was the Blackhawks on the Ducks. I knew it
oh
would come
yeah,
to me. Yeah.
yeah. But especially with Farabee having 5-season contract at 5 million
Yeah, come on.
AAV, like he's just not really tradable right
No,
now,
it's not
I think.
happening. And there's no reason why the Flyers should retain on him. As a young guy, the hope should be that he'll be back to form next year.
Yeah.
And Torts will work it out with him because Torts generally likes his attitude and such. So I think it's workable.
Yeah, I think so as well. Looking ahead to this upcoming weekend, the Flyers have two very different opponents that we are facing in the Montreal Canadiens and New Jersey Devils. And first up, obviously, tonight is the Habs. And man, they are having a go of it right now. Way back in November, if we recall, the Flyers lost to the Habs 5-4 in a shootout, which was absolutely dreadful. Cole Caulfield tied it up with two
See, I
seconds
remember
left.
that part.
Yeah, well, it's hard to forget that, to be
Yeah.
honest. And then of course the Habs wound up winning in the shootout in that one. But these two teams are, in similar situations in that they are definitely in rebuilds. It's just the approaches are very, very different. Let's be clear.
Right. Like
But
the Canadians aren't afraid to say the word.
exactly. And they're doing rebuild like things at the
Yes.
moment. And there's a very clear plan there and it's being vocalized by management. Whether it'll work or not is another story, but they have, some really good prospects in their
Hmm.
system right now and they have 2 first round draft picks in this year's draft. So they have a lot to look forward to. Interestingly, on Tankathon, Montreal is only one place up from the Flyers in that list. They have similar wins, but the Flyers have, much to many people's chagrin, racked up a lot of loser points this season. So that is really the point differential that gives Montreal one step up at the moment. But the Habs have been really interesting because they've been able to beat some really good teams this season, just intermittently.
Hmm.
They did beat the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday, but then, they lost to the Leafs and Canes before that. So it's been a very rocky road this season overall for the Habs.
Yeah, I mean, Marty St. Louis is going to try and keep them fired up and keep the ship on a course at least. They're not right. We know that. Jake Allen's going to play against the Flyers, and he's a really decent goalie. So
Yep.
the goalie matchup will be good. I don't think that's the issue. You might look at the Habs and say um, they're a little beaten up on offense, although Nick Suzuki will certainly do well against the Flyers because they have trouble covering those types of players. But their defense is a little off too. There's no question about it. So again, you look at it and you say, because the Flyers are at home, this is a very winnable home game for them. But again, you got to see which team shows up now because there are no set lineups anymore. I mean, again, I'm just stunned at this point in the season that we don't have a good idea of what any line's going to be, except for maybe the fourth line and the third pairing. So, based on that, it really is going to depend on the matchups. But the Flyers, much to the chagrin maybe of some fans, will be in a position where they could win this game and pull away from the Canadians, which again, that'll cause all kinds of mixed feelings too.
Yeah, I think it's really we just don't want a loser point in this game. I don't think either team wants a
No, they
loser
don't. They
point in
don't.
this game. Well, there is a lot going on with Montreal in terms of injuries. We have a laundry list of them to talk about, plus some more players to watch out for, including a waiver claim. So we're going to get to that coming up next.
Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You gotta try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And what's even better is that they're healthy, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box, cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later.
All right, Russ. So the injury list in Montreal is so long. I'm
It's a
not
laundry
sure
list.
I have all of them covered, but one guy we will not have to worry about is Cole Caulfield that bit us in the last one. Unfortunately, he has a shoulder injury that he's out for the rest of the season. Jaroslav Kovsky, their number 1 draft pick, is on IR. Won't be seeing him either in this one. They've had Jake Evans is on IR, Sean Monahan's on IR, Joel Edmondson is still in rehab, Chris Weidman is week to week, Joel Armia is day to day, so that's a question mark there. Kirby Doc,
What about Carey Price? What's his status?
yeah, well, that's a whole other story. But yeah, Kirby Doc won't travel to Philly for this game. Yeah, just so many guys out.
Man, it's tough for them. I mean, this is one where some of the young talent is going to have to step up, and somebody like Suzuki is going to have to really try and dominate a game where I think he has it in him to some degree. I don't know if he's going to have the line mates in this one, and they're missing some real key players in key spots too. I mean, especially
Especially
defense.
on, yeah, the defense is just decimated right now. And, I look at their lines and there's at least 6 guys that I don't know who they are.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this is a
it's
game.
pretty brutal.
It is. This is a game where you would hope that guys like Christian Dvorak and Mike Hoffman step up, but they've kind of had
Right.
subpar seasons. Evgeny Dadonov again could be trade bait. He's a guy that has the scoring ability. You can't just like leave him open. So I'm saying that like as if the Flyers could hear me, but I'm just saying don't leave him open. Uh, Oddly enough, Jonathan Drouin doesn't even have a goal this year. Like, I don't even know how that's possible.
I
Considering what his
know.
talent level used to be, it's just sad. Uh, I'll tell you
Rem
on the
Pitlick has been on waivers twice this season, I think.
crazy. I mean, I saw Joel Armia's day today. If he plays, that helps him on the penalty kill, and he has a little bit of offense. I do like Jordan Harris, and Matheson's kind of resurrected his career a little bit. So,
A little bit,
they
yeah.
they still have some guys, but man, they're going to have to get picked up by young players here, and we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll see. I don't know. I don't know who they're actually going to have in the lineup. I'm going to leave that alone. But I'm interested in this one because this is one where the Flyers could certainly take them too lightly.
Yeah, especially with a lot of unknowns, right? With
Yes.
with guys that they're not used to in the lineup. I will say Josh Anderson is also really good.
Yes.
Although he's kind of trade bait right now. That there's talk that he may be one of the people as part of the Habs
It's
rebuild
going to be hard
to
with that
get dealt.
salary, though.
I know, but there would definitely be
Years.
salary retention.
Salary retention, but the years. It's a lot of years for
Yeah.
him left. And so, yeah, that one I'm not so positive they could trade him because I think for the same reasons, and they can't now because he's hurt. They couldn't trade Brendan Gallagher. I think it's going to be the same reasons they can't trade Josh Anderson.
Yeah. Well, Brendan Gallagher's out too, so
Yep,
you know.
just add him to the list.
Right.
Where's Youpie? Is he playing?
Yeah. No, because it's the Flyers' home game.
Well, maybe they should have you be in there. Just saying.
Yeah, maybe. At least, on the special teams side, the Habs are one of, like, 2 teams that are worse on the power play than the
You didn't have to
Flyers.
dig that hard to find that stat. That's the funny part.
No, no, but the Flyers, obviously, the Habs PK is worse because the Flyers penalty kill has been, until recently, mostly okay.
Yes.
Um, yeah, the face-off percentage, for the Habs is better than the Flyers, but they're still under 50%. So this is when 2, like, not great face-off teams go
Yeah.
head to head.
Suzuki is
Um,
is pretty fast on the faceoffs,
yeah,
but
but they don't have
Dvorak
anybody else.
no, Dvorak is like a better number 3 center. When he's playing 2, it's hard for him. But again, when you're playing against the Flyers, really you're playing against the 3 also. So I think it's an even matchup there. That's just the reality.
Yeah, I think so too. Then, of course, we turn around and face the New Jersey Devils,
Oof.
the very next day, who I think are in a real fun spot
Mhm.
because they're having an amazing season, but they also are struggling with respectability. Like there's got a lot of like, we're the underdog there when they are not. And I think there's like a misconception of sort of the place of the Devils in the league right now that there isn't like they still feel like underdogs even though they are not,
Well,
if
I can
that
tell
makes
you
sense.
why. I mean, it's because who's going to be their playoff goalie? Is it Vanacek? Is it Blackwood? Is either of them good enough to get to the conference final? Like
I
that's a
don't
real
know.
question, and that's the reason. Like that's the reason. Otherwise, if if they had somebody, let's say Corey Crawford was a couple years ago when they had him, and he wasn't injured, you'd be seeing a different. They'd be singing a different song. The people talking about the Devils, but that's their one weakness right now. I don't think they're going to be able to upgrade it at the deadline. They'll add probably another defenseman at the deadline, and maybe Luke Hughes comes in on the back end, but I don't know if he's going to play that much. He might
I don't
just
know
play enough to
either.
satisfy the ELC and burn that and just sit and watch on the bench. That's possible. We'll have to wait and see. But for the Flyers, this is a tough game because you're coming back to back. They're much faster. Jack Hughes is somebody you got to really watch after. You can't really have this is a game I have to put it out there that you can't have Nick Delorier and the fourth line trying to cover the first line of the Devils. You
No,
can't.
you need faster skaters.
They'll run them right into the ground.
Yeah, you absolutely I mean, this is where maybe you put together a third line that
Yeah.
has Owen Tippett on it, even though
Yeah.
you may not want to do that as a general rule, just because he's had some success higher up in the lineup.
Right.
But I think, he's a guy that goes after guys, or maybe it's Wade Allison.
Yeah,
He's slower than Tippett, but still has that aggressiveness
he does.
that maybe he can help cover those guys a little bit. But yeah, the Devils are a real tough opponent. But they have lost some really interesting games recently to much weaker teams. Like we just talked about, they lost to Montreal
Yeah.
most recently before last night's game, which we're recording before that one against the Kings. So while they won't be coming off a back to back, they're coming off, their most recent game against a Western Conference team who is battling for playoff positioning. And I really think this Kings Devils game is going to be a rough one. So we'll see what happens in it, and they'll obviously get the day of rest. But going from playing a team like the Kings to playing the Flyers is often a tough transition for
Yeah.
good teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, there's a rivalry too. These teams don't like each other, and that'll definitely show up. If Miles Wood's in the lineup, you can almost guarantee he will score against the Flyers because he always does.
He
Doesn't
does.
matter. Doesn't matter how many goals he has on the season. Doesn't matter what line he's on. For some reason, they can never cover him. It's like It's almost like he's basically in stealth mode, and he's just out there, nobody can see him. So I don't know. We'll see how all this works out. Jesper Bratt's another guy, he's so hard to cover. And Dougie Hamilton's really good on the blue line. I mean, they have a very talented, fast-paced offense. And this is something where, very much like with Edmonton, they're going to have to do something. That early strategy of just dumping it in the corner, I don't think it's going to work anymore. It may have worked early in the season, but I don't think it'll work now.
Yeah, they just have so many guys that can produce, and, you know, Hamilton on the blue line has had a really good season
Yeah.
for them. And I think that it's just a team that has been able to put it together on the offensive side of things, but are a little bit vulnerable still on the defensive
Hmm.
side of things. I mean, Severson and Sigenthaler, they're fine. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that's where the weaknesses are. And if the Flyers can figure out a way to get through the neutral zone quickly, there are opportunities there. I just think that they clog up the neutral zone in pure Devils style, right?
Yeah, and you basically said that with no confidence, so that already shows that you're a little worried about that happening.
Well, the
So
problem for
I
the
get it.
Flyers is they only have, like, 1 guy per line who can get through
Right.
really quickly, and you need the trailers to be able
Yeah.
to put plays together, and
Yeah, that's
that's
why
where
they
the
don't
Flyers'
slingshot
weakness
anymore.
is.
That is the
Right.
reason they don't slingshot anymore. It's true.
Yeah, it has been a remarkable decrease in the number of slingshots. They only do it on the power play
Yeah. Yep.
right now. So, yeah, so there's a lot going on in this weekend's matchups. And, you know, speaking of the Devils, as we are right now, they are part of this Eastern Conference shuffle that's happening in terms of playoff positioning. And so we're going to dig into who we think will come out on top when playoff time comes next. All right, Russ. The Eastern Conference is, I would say, more competitive than the Western Conference right now in terms of
Yes.
having a lot more good teams or great teams in the league this year. And when you look at the current standings, it seems very clear, obviously, that Boston is atop the Atlantic. I don't see that going away. Carolina has a little bit of a cushion right now, but um, you know, that can obviously change at any moment. But the way they're
Hmm.
playing, I don't see I don't see that changing. I see
No,
Carolina
I don't
as
either.
winning that division. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Like, they've been going on these really great winning streaks. But then you look, you know, kind of beyond that, and it does feel to some degree like the 3 top teams in the Metro are going to be those 3 top teams in Carolina, New Jersey, and the Rangers. Now, the order could change,
Hmm.
but and I'm just wondering. To me, I think the Rangers do have the possibility of catching up with New Jersey and those two teams flip flopping.
Yeah, there's a possibility. I'm looking right now at their schedule, and it's not the easiest. They do have a lot of games left with the Penguins, Capitals, teams that are really going to be trying hard to get in the playoffs. They're playing the Red Wings, who are right on the cusp too. So I think the Devils are safe. I think the Rangers are going to end up staying where they are based on these other teams who they're fighting.
It feels like the Rangers are making the moves in order to make an extra push right now. In that way,
Well, yeah, especially still not being out of the Patrick Kane trading sweepstakes. They may be the only team now.
yeah,
So
I
based
know,
another Claude Giroux situation. So based on that, yes, but I don't think they care whether they come in 1, 2, or 3. I don't.
right. I don't think so either. And then the Atlantic Division is where I think the question comes, because I do think that the Leafs and Tampa will be in second and third, but I don't know what that final order is going to be.
Yeah, I think the Leafs will edge out Tampa, but again, Tampa doesn't care.
I know
They're actually Tampa wants to be in that spot because they want to play the Leafs in the first round because all the pressure is on the Leafs. Like that's how they
it's
want it.
true. It is
And they don't
true.
even care if they're at home or not. They didn't have a home ice last year, so none
No.
of that matters to them. And then
Right.
Boston's on their own island, like they're
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. So it just comes down to the wild card. And right now the Pens have been in a little bit of a tailspin,
yeah.
but they have quite a few games in hand on the Islanders and the Panthers, who are above them. right now in the standings. And Detroit, though, is knocking on that door as well in a surprise late season push
Yes.
here. So they've been playing really well and also have those games in hand as well and are just 1 point behind
Well, and
Pittsburgh.
so does Buffalo. Buffalo's got a lot of games in hand too. If they were to get a goalie at the deadline, they certainly could stay in this race.
Can
So
we
you're gonna
interest you in a Felix Sandstrom?
I don't think that's enough for them. But
No, it's not.
Corpusalo is a guy who maybe they could get. Uh End of the day, I am gonna go Penguins and Red Wings because the Red Wings, for some reason, I have been following them, and while they play a little up and down, they're pretty steady as a team. Now they are going through a hot streak, but they do have all these games in hand, and they're going to be put in the weird position of maybe having to buy something at the deadline because they have a chance to do that. And if they do that, that could be enough for them. The Penguins, I think Jerry will figure it out. The Islanders, it's Sorokin or bust. They don't have Barzal, and I think eventually that's going to show up. They're winning games 2-1. How can they do that the rest of the year? It's a lot of games. So I think that's going to be the battle for them. And I just don't believe in Florida. I don't. Now the Capitals are an interesting one because we'll see how Ovechkin plays when he comes back, but they may have lost the window just in the time that he was gone. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think, the Islanders, I don't know. I don't know that they can keep it up either. They win some really remarkable games,
They
but
do.
at the same time, like, I just don't think it's sustainable with them. But
Right.
I mean, you never know. But
No.
there's 6 teams in contention realistically for 2 wild card spots.
Yes.
And it's not usually like this late.
I mean, an interesting game could be if somehow the Sabres stay in it. Second to last game for the season for the Rangers is against the Sabres. So that could be a big game for the MSG network because there could be a lot of eyeballs on that game. We'll see.
Yeah, I will definitely be keeping an eye on Detroit specifically over the
Yes,
next little bit, and Florida, I gotta say, who are sandwiched in there as well, who were having a rough season, but they've been putting more wins together
I
recently,
have.
hence their position right
I
here.
still don't love the way they're playing though.
No, they're still pretty weak on the defensive side of things. So it's a giant question mark there for me, but you can't count them out at this
No,
point given
no.
where they are in the standing. So we'll see how the trade deadline affects all this
It's going
as
to be
well.
big. Like for these teams that we're talking about, they all have to do something.
Yeah, they do. And
Well, the
that trade
Islanders
deadline.
can't. They've already done it, but everybody else.
Right. So that trade deadline is 1 week from today. So the next week is going to be very huge in determining those standings and what happens with the Flyers. So we will be back on Monday to recap those games against the Habs and Devils and any trade deadline news that happened over the weekend, if any should occur. We'll also have our nemesis of the week. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in any questions you have for us via Twitter at Locked On Flyers or email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great weekend, everyone.